gather from this discussion so far is that a good, you can score a goal on a good path.
When you use the word value, see, all these, finance function is also a service provider like the IT function, right? The administration, the HR, and all these things. But when you talk of value, you embark on a journey that, okay, now I have $1 million, right? And I'm the sole proprietor, and today I want to set up a business. And some friend gives me an idea that, okay, this is the business you go into. My brain is not thinking that who will be my CIO, who will be my CFO, who will be my service provider, admin ka in charge kisko banayenge. You are thinking totally value. That this 1 million I want to convert it into 10 in the next 4 years. How do I do it? At that time, you don't need all these functions. I mean, it's what we're talking of is of a running organization. Okay, you want to add 3 more branches to a bank. Then the CIO and the CFO and everybody sits together and they say, okay, when we buy a bank to our bank, we'll be 200 branches adding on. How do we integrate IT? How do we integrate finance? But when you're starting on a journey, you don't need all these things. You need an idea. You need how to create value to the existing assets that you have. You don't need all these service functions.
Is there a difference between people who come up with ideas and execute?
Yes.
And that has nothing to do with people who do it.
And in a running organization, then you need that the board discusses these things. And as per the code of corporate governance, the CFO has to be there.
I know. So that's exactly
and
my
give
point.
the numbers over there.
I know. That's exactly my point, that a lot of companies globally are changing because of this exact thing, that these regulations or whatever have you are restricting the growth in Pakistan. And that's why you see even in Pakistan these things are, Pakistan is in that changing mode and things will change.
Let me just add one thing over here. Some years back, there was no designation as called the CIO. There was no designation as the CFO. People were like IT managers or accounting managers or finance managers and all that. And I personally think that when an IT manager became a CIO or a finance manager became a CFO, it was because of the value the company expected of them to be contributed. So CFO definitely and CIO definitely has a direct stake in the company now. And probably those were not only names that were given to these or designations that were given to these positions. There was some reason, like CIOs are directly reporting to the CEO right now. For instance, there was a time when only the sales organization used to run the company, and everybody else was supporting them, and everybody else was, I would say, if I may, beneath them. But this is not the case now. Everybody, like you have become CIO, they have become CFOs, and everybody is contributing value to the organization.
So then can I just cut in and have a counter question to you? So they've become CIOs, they've become CFOs. In terms of a technology partner, IBM's been around in Pakistan for what, about
52 years, more than 50.
So half century. How is it easier, or is it easier or more difficult to interact with organizations now that you have senior designations coming into play? Leave the ego portion aside, and I didn't mean to point at you when I said ego, but but is it easier for service providers, anyone, to deal with organizations now that you have so many people who are thinking business strategy?
Easier, definitely. Because they can now value our whatever we are contributing or whatever we are bringing to the table. We also bring value. We bring value to the table. Like CIOs, CFOs, they will realize that that IBM or any other company like IBM is actually contributing to their bottom line and to their personal success and to the success of their organization. So of course, definitely, I think times are definitely better for us.
I'd just like to. So many people want to say so many things.
I think it's not just CIO, CFO, whatever have changed. It's actually the organizations have changed also. Before they used to come in, IBM used to come and just sell this much capacity of hard disk and this much capacity of RAM or whatever, and now they're coming up with solutions. They're not talking about this box or that box. They're coming up with, this is your problem, this is how we can solve it, and then, by the way, this thing has this number on it. So they've also
Exactly.
changed.
Like for instance, what we have, and when I say we, I'm talking about the industry as vendors. We have realized the need of the time. Now when we go to the company, we understand that maybe it's not so easy for anybody to commit large numbers or to have huge capex right now. So how can we help them, for instance? How can we convert their capex into probably OPEX and have a win-win situation for both?
There's one
Just,
comment here and then back.
just a practical aspect of it. Last year we were confronted with this question. We were going for change in our software, IT software, and we had to buy hardware to support that. And there was this classical debate between the finance people and the IT head. IT wanted IBM, and the CFO didn't want, just because of the expensiveness of this. But in the end, the management had to agree with the IT, who had to really go ahead with the whatever he was buying. So, like Yaqub sir just said, that budgeting or X number of funds made available by finance through board, whatever. But in the end, that nitty-gritty, who is to be the user of that asset, that is to, in my case, that to it.
It finally boils down to value for money. So, and whatever you spend, you should get value for that. Okay, finally,
I can add one thing. I think the role, if I just say, it's emerging in the sense that the CFO is converting more towards the strategic financial side of it, strategic financial planning, and the CIO is strategic technologist. So it is emerging in that context also. So yes, they have to go side by side to each other. But it is emerging in that context.
I'll just give an example. For example, I met someone from India who was running a bank over there. It's basically the ICICI bank that I'm talking about. And they're very successful in developing their own applications, in delivering those applications, and approaching customers all over India with so many branches and so many different distribution channels. So I think that's something that maybe we can also apply wherever we can. We basically cut down on the boundaries that we have as far as communication is concerned, and share information to as great an extent as we can.
But then, depending on when you spoke to the head of ICICI Bank, she's also a woman, so maybe that helps.
So it was not the head, but someone finally, just one last slide that was presented earlier also. Basically, this is in continuation with what was shown earlier, that along the 4 different levels of CFO that we discussed, the scorekeeper, going up to the value to the discipline operator, to constraint advisor, to value integrator. So you can see an exact the financial results of those companies where the CFO is in the role of a value integrator or of that of a discipline operator. You can see that their financial performance is also definitely better compared to companies where the role of the CFO is either that of a scorekeeper or that of a constraint advisor. And these financial results are in the form of revenue growth, in the form of stock price, the EBITDA, and the return on invested capital. So that was basically it. Thank you, everyone.
Before I invite Arslan Sahab onto the front of the room, Adil, because you interact with CFOs and CIOs and all these different jargon, I'm just wondering, the discussion that took place here, and the initial question that Iram put, is there a possibility that there will be value integrators in the CFO designation? Do you see that happening?
Well, basically, I was listening to the discussion, and what I actually got was that the CFOs, in order for them to be valued for that particularly, at least in our country, we need to go carry out meetings in different parts of the country. We're constructing something in Islamabad, the company is based in Karachi. But through the concept of cloud computing, you really did not have to travel, and you could have your meetings based in whatever city that you're based in. So if such kind of solutions are made possible to CFOs in order to cut their costs, because cutting costs is the only thing which will lead us to growth, at least in our country, forgetting whatever happens abroad. But if until unless the CFO really does not, from the truest sense, understand the role of the IT, and the IT people really don't understand the role of the CFO, that if they won't allow your budgets, you won't be able to function. And if the CFOs will not understand that the ITs will not provide you with the solutions, you will not flourish further. So my observation of the whole thing is that it's more of an understanding, as in the beginning that it was mentioned, as a communication gap. Now the problem is, I think we found the fact, what we really need to work towards is to reduce this communication gap by putting people in each other's
It's happening
shoes.
itself, because you see, we are from the 1970-80 era. That was the time we were going through the schooling systems. We never saw computers at that time. Now even my 7-year-old daughter had her own website. So it's the demographic change, and each and every person that is retiring these days is not an IT savvy person, but a replacement that comes in is an IT savvy person.
That's right.
And that is what is changing the demographics in any organization, that the newcomers are all very, very well versed, and that is reducing that communication.
And I want to confess one thing. And my apologies to my fellow IT guys. I'm the biggest culprit. One of the biggest culprits. We complicate IT too much. Right? This server, this storage, this network, that software. I'm like, bottom line, black box solutions coming out of it for CFOs and for others. So most of the time what happens is that, and we do it for obviously genuine reasons, and I wouldn't say that we do it deliberately, that the things are changing so fast, everything is so complicated that obviously you want to have the right solution for your company. But this is a fact that for anybody else in the organization, it's too complicated. It's too complicated. I don't know, maybe some of you people have become IT savvy. The term itself, IT savvy, has to be coined because people didn't understand what IT is all about, whatever they are doing in that room.
Not 100%. Let me give you a live example which happened 3 hours ago. Before coming here, I said, well, I have to go to this event, so I sent an email, forwarded Ravia's email to my IT guys. Said, do you have any comments? I'm going here, and if you have any input. So they sent me a 10-point email, and then I picked up the phone and I said, I could understand only 2. So I won't discuss the rest of the 8 points.
But as we have CFOs in banking, CIOs in banking, such as yourself, we also have CFOs in large organizations. And somebody who just joined us a little later, Sir Zahid Rani-san, is a CFO of IBM. So I find it rather inspiring that not only do we have CIOs, that techie guy, or supposedly techie guy in the banking industry, but we also have someone like yourself at IBM. And I'm just wondering if we can round off this discussion from a brief comment from you, because I didn't want to call on you before, so I could put you on the spot purposely later on.
No, but before he starts, I would like to apologize on his behalf, because he probably won't do that. He was on a closing call for us, and I said, please take the closing call first. We can wait for you. He wanted to be here,
Right.
Yeah, my apologies for that.
Of course.
I just wanted to break the bottom line being is the cost advantage. So I think it's more of a collaborative effort, and if you look at the market, and more so in Pakistan, I think we are still at the infancy stage, right? I think we are still developing. I mean, as a CFO of a multinational, I don't think I've reached a point where I can stand up and say, yes, I am performing the role of a value integrator. I think there is still a lot to do, basically, to reach that, that level. I think one of the most important things, a stepping stone or starting point to, move onto that path, is focusing on achieving business efficiency, right? Because historically, actually, a lot of time
is being spent by the finance team or even CFO in the the day-to-day activities. I'm not saying all organizations, but certain organizations, right? So business efficiency is one thing which requires a lot of focus, right? Which means the implementation of standard processes, all across the organization, which will really facilitate things, which will help in moving towards economies of scale, efficiency, and then automation, systemization, right? That is something I think which can really help organizations.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Can you please give him a big round of applause?
Since he's from IBM.
Since he's from IBM, a little bit louder. Come on. So, definitely, and there are a lot of learnings that we've had this past week, because not only have we hosted roundtables for CIOs this past week, we also hosted roundtables for CSO, the Chief Security Officer, and now CFO. So it's interesting how similar the challenges are and how similar solutions everyone is adopting. And much of what you said, Zahisa, I'll share in my closing. But I think without any further ado, if we can have the final presentation and discussion together. So can I please call upon Arslan Sheikh, who's the Information Management Specialist at IBM.
We've talked a lot about the value integrator, the super CFO, the guy who delivers way more value than the old-fashioned concept of what a director of finance would be that was there 30, 40, 50 years ago. Now, if you ask me who's a good example of that, it's the president of a company that is today worth $44 billion, who started as a CFO. PepsiCo is the world's, one of the world's largest beverage retailing companies, and the president of PepsiCo International, so everything, so I'm including all the restaurant chains, all the foods, all the chips they make, everything, not just the beverage part. $44 billion company, and their president is their former CFO. Now that's someone who obviously added value to that role, someone who didn't restrict their role of adding a value to a company to just just being the numbers and the crunching. And I think the reason you see more and more people migrating from one is blood, and the other is lymphatic fluid, right? So, and nobody knows about the lymphatic fluid because it's very unexciting. You cannot cut yourself and suddenly bleed in lymphatic fluid. It doesn't have the same urgency, the same passion as red blood flowing all over the place. And the analogy I find is very similar to the two circulatory systems that exist in any organization. There's money. It's your blood. It is essential to you staying alive every single day. And then there's information. Now, information and money, they both circulate from the root to the tip of any organization. It is essential to keeping an organization functioning, healthy, optimally. But let's face it, the information flow is just much less, exciting, and it's a lot more boring, because it involves servers and networks and 1,300 spreadsheets that you have to look through. The same thing goes on, but this is why I've never heard of it. You constantly hear about CFOs moving into dominant strategy roles in organizations. In the case of PepsiCo, as president, and it's not so rare with the CIOs. It's a bit rarer with the CIOs. So that is one theme, and I think that explains why we see this. The other theme that we really saw from the discussion today is that of exploding data. I am constantly amazed by how much more. I'm an IT guy. I graduated in MIS back in 2000, but my 13-year-old nephew knows way more things than I know how to do. Give him a computer and just watch him run. The demands on our attention today are way more diverse and pressing and urgent than they were 20 years ago. Does anyone remember back when we operated fax machines ourselves? Instead of sending emails?
Never.
Right. Those of us who didn't have the fortune of having lots of people do our work for us, there is an information explosion. It's not just doubling or a tripling or a quadrupling. It is an order of magnitude, explosion. If you go back 5 years or if you go back 10 years, the amount of information that organizations today have the capacity to manage and the capacity to circulate. So can your old circulation system, which was good enough in the 30s, good enough in the 40s, good enough in the 80s, can that same system really serve you today when the volume of information is exponentially larger, right? What was that? I think, again, Surya Satman referred to that. He used an excellent phrase, getting the right information to the right person at the right time. In the face of a huge surge in the amount of information, how do you still manage that? It was easy when you had 100 times less information. How do you manage that today? That's really the second theme. And this is where IT has to do a better job of helping organizations. IT has to evolve faster for organizations to cope with that information overload than the financial system has. Financial systems today, they may be way more optimized than they were 20 years ago, right? But the degree of change that was required from 20 years ago to today is nothing compared to the degree of change required in the information systems. It needs to cope much faster, much better, because the volume of stuff it has to deal with has gone up. And I think the third theme that really touched me when I heard about it today from the discussion, I think, from the participants, it was about how we can no longer have people dealing with information, whether it's the IT organization or it's the CFO's organization. We can no longer just look back at historical data. We need to understand why we are where we are today. We need to understand what is changing our business realities today. Markets are getting more competitive. You have to understand how products and service lines are differing, are performing, are reacting to competitive offers, and you have to be forward-looking. It's no longer good enough to have a lot of information about what we did last year and how we're different this year. You have to be forward-looking. It has to be, there has to be what-if analysis that says, if we make this business decision, what will be the impact? Somebody gave a brilliant example of labor disputes, that you're negotiating terms and conditions, with a labor organization, and you don't have a real-time understanding of what that will mean financially for the company. Those kinds of decisions can make or break not just companies, industries. I mean, everyone knows what happened with the American automobile industry, right? They were wiped out because of all the pension obligations that they had. It was unsustainable for them. Toyota overtook General Motors as being the world's largest car manufacturer. They weren't giving their employees pensions. It was a business decision, but with huge financial impacts. And you need more powerful, more enabled CFOs at the heart of the organization to really tap into the potential of uplifting the business strategy by providing that financial insight. So those are three themes that I think emerged from the discussion: the changing role of the CFO, the huge explosion in data and the ability, the imperative to manage it, and thirdly, the move away from looking back at historical data to really manage your organization's performance with forward-looking data. Do predictive analytics. Say, where will I be if I make this decision today? Where will I be 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Those are real three themes. And there's also three themes that emerged from the survey that we did. So the 2010 CFO survey, the first theme, delivering efficiency through standards matters. To really be that powerful contributor to the organization strategy, CFO organizations, the financial part of the company needs, just because they have so much more information, to become more efficient. Companies that were better at financial efficiency, in their core finance operations, they outperformed all the other companies on a 5-year horizon for EBITDA, for revenue growth, and for return on invested capital. They outperformed everyone else just because they were better at financial efficiency. Nearly 40% of enterprises produce metrics manually. 40%. So this is our global survey looking at thousands of CFOs, and 40% of them, that's a huge percentage, say we are still manually producing metrics. Think about what kind of a drag that creates on an organization. Finance still continues to spend nearly 50% of their time on transactional activities. So the more time you're bogged down creating metrics, creating, burdened with manual processes, the less time you're spending on that strategic imperative. The second theme is that if you can provide business insight, if you can give genuine business insight, I'll come back to that phrase, giving the right information to the right person at the right time. If you can genuinely turn that from a slogan into a business reality, that your lower level operational managers have the information they need to manage their operations, if your middle managers, your division heads, your product managers, your branch managers, they have the right information, and your strategic level managers, they also get the right information at the right time, whether it's financial, whether it's operational. This has a huge impact. And we see this everywhere. 50% of organizations lack a common enterprise planning platform. Every division is running their own thing. If it's a bank, the credit card people are running their own system, the loans people have their own, the house mortgage people have their own way of doing it. Maybe they're following the same principles. They don't have a common platform. And 55% are not satisfied with their operational planning and forecasting capabilities. 44% are poor to average, on a 5-point scale, they're poor to average at anticipating external forces. And you can't afford that today. You can't afford to react that slow.
I know it's your presentation, but can I just say?
Sure.
I mean, I know that this was the survey done, and there has to be a lot more time and justification to bring justification into the survey itself, but I'm wondering how many of CFOs here or CIOs who are on fire actually agree with any of this? I mean, just to get an insight. I mean, are you dissatisfied with your operation planning? Are you spending a lot more time? Is that what your everyday task is? I mean, is that what the survey is actually asking? I'm just wondering if they could. Is this a theme that is followed in your organization? Is this something that you're thinking about? Am I speaking too fast? Am I the only thing between you and dinner? Yes?
I think we fall into the activity trap. And every day, most of the Pakistani firms, most of the Pakistani businesses that I've seen in my experience, although it's not that much, but what I've seen is that CFOs and the whole finance management team gets into that activity trap. They tend to look at just vouchers, just data, try to prepare financial statements, try to get this and that done, try to follow orders, and that takes them from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. And at the end of the day, they don't do any planning. They don't know what's in store for the next day.
You're saying they, you aren't the CFO.
Oh yeah, I am. So I'm included in that.
If you can also just introduce yourself so everybody knows.
Umar Niaz, CFO, Network Microfinance Bank, small organization. And what I'm trying to say is that this kind of activity trap bogs the whole organization down, because you see, it's the financial guy who has to put their input into the strategy that the board agrees to, that is filtered down right to the marketing team. So if the finance guy he cannot really provide the costing data, cannot really provide the MIS that is needed to make the correct decisions at the top level, and he is constantly looking at the financials, he's constantly dealing with the audits, he's constantly dealing with this issue and that issue and the regulatory issues and all that, then at the end of the day, you cannot plan ahead. You cannot be competitive. So for that, I think what needs to be done is that organizations across the board, be it in the financial sector, in the manufacturing sector, they need to understand, even the managements need to understand, that the finance division has to be bifurcated. In the sense, there should be a separate team for strategic thinking.
All right, that's kind of a given here. I guess a benchmark would be the correct word to say. But I'm just wondering if any of these things are true for the.
I was actually speaking on 50% of the time that is spent on the financial thing. I think
common planning platform?
Yeah, I think more than let's say 70% is spent over there in our organizations, where automation is a little less. Where so we spend more time.
There's a very simple solution for that. You just hire us to do the planning part.
No, that's true, but that may be true for big companies. See, for smaller companies and a lot of companies, they can't just hire teams for this purpose. They need to allocate more time towards the strategy.